Hello colleagues, this video is my response to Stacey's feedback on cultural adaptivity for online classes, HCI and HCD Considerations. Firstly, I want to thank Stacey for her comprehensive analysis of my initial post and also for recommended Hofstede cultural dimension model while applying HCI and HCD considerations in developing online courses. Check out the links to our videos in the description below. Cultural differences can act as a barrier to communication. Hofstede's insights enable you to solve intercultural and organizational culture challenges by utilizing their cultural dimension framework. We will consider cultural values for the 6 dimensions. We will explore the cultures of Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica through the lens of Hofstede's 6D model. Hofstede presented the data in 2010 as part of a comprehensive study on how values in the workplace are influenced by culture. Each value score is measured between 0 to 100. Unfortunately, these were the only participating islands in the region. While it may not represent the whole Caribbean culture, we get a good overview of the deep drivers of their culture. Let's consider the first dimension. Power distance. That is the extent to which the less powerful members of institutions within a country expect and accept that power is distributed unequally. Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica scores are relatively the same, which means that we are characterized as being independent. Power is decentralized. Therefore, managers, educational tutors count on the experience of team members and students. Employees and students expect to be consulted. Control is disliked. Communication is direct and participative. Individualism. The degree of interdependence a society maintains among its members. This is whether people's self-image is defined in terms of I or we. Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica fell below 50. We are considered collectivistic societies. This is manifest in a close long-term commitment to the member of group, be that a family, extended family, or extended relationships. In collectivist settings, offense leads to shame and loss of face. Next, we look at masculinity. The fundamental issue here is what motivates people. Wanting to be the best, which is masculine, or liking what you do, which is feminine. Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica scores are the same on this dimension, and are thus masculine societies. People live in order to work. Managers are expected to be decisive and assertive. The emphasis is on equity. Competition and performance and conflicts are resolved by fighting them out. Next, uncertainty avoidance. The extent to which members of a culture feel threatened by ambiguous or unknown situations and have created beliefs and institutions that try to avoid these. Trinidad and Tobago scores an intermediate. Jamaica's scores shows a low preference for avoiding uncertainty. It is a more relaxed attitude in which practice counts more than principles, and deviance from the norm is more easily tolerated. If rules do not work, it should be abandoned or changed. Schedules are flexible. Hard work is undertaken when necessary, but it's not for its own sake. Precision and punctuality do not come naturally. Innovation is not seen as threatening. Next, we look at long-term orientation. How every society has to maintain some links with its own past while dealing with the challenges of the present and future. There is no score for Jamaica. No score was available. Trinidad and Tobago have a very low score of 13 on this dimension, making it a normative culture. People have strong concern with establishing the absolute truth. They are normative in their thinking. They exhibit great respect for traditions, a relatively small propensity to save for the future, and a focus on achieving quick results. So to our last dimension, indulgence, the extent to which people try to control their desires and impulses based on the way they were raised. Jamaica presented no score here, with a very high score of 80. The culture of Trinidad and Tobago is characterized as indulgent. People exhibit a willingness to realize their impulses and desires with regard to enjoying life and having fun. They possess a positive attitude and have a tendency towards optimism. In addition, they place a higher degree of importance on leisure time, act as they please, and spend money as they wish. Stacey, I saw you left the cultural dimensions of learning framework for me to analyze. In this diagram, location can be local or global, and learning can be in a formal setting such as a school or in informal settings that are beyond the classroom, such as maybe a museum or a science center when we go out on a field visit. Where learning is currently located will have its own cultural context. Location will determine the type of technological resources that are available and used. However, international learners bring different cultural perspective and technological familiarity and competencies. These factors will influence the design and development of learning resources to satisfy the learners. Designers will have to exercise cultural sensitivity and awareness in their pedagogical approach, technological selections, and create resources specific to users within the cultural context, free from cultural biases, to produce culturally adaptive learning resources. You asked, what cultural differences have you noticed at UB Open Campus in our TLET program? Transculturation or cross-influence characterizes our Caribbean culture. It makes it easy to understand that each island has its own culture. Although some of us are geographically close, we all have different stories. Therefore, each island grows their own culture. Although we are branded as one Caribbean, one people, one UB, we are a culturally diverse people. Apart from the cultural differences discussed in Hofstede's Insights, one of the most striking differences you immediately pick up in our live discussions is our spoken language. Most of us are English speakers, but each island has a different accent, a distinctive way in our pronunciation. Our cultural differences will include ethnic groups, currencies, religions, politics, beliefs, food, and music. You asked, what cultural adaptations could you consider to improve the design of our program? Let us refer to country comparisons presented by the Hofstede's model. Again, unfortunately, there were only 2 participating islands in this project. However, we can still use it as a sample for discussion. One dimension that shows a striking cultural difference is uncertainty avoidance. For example, some students may prefer some flexibility with deadlines and accept plain talk. A tutor from a different culture adheres to strict deadlines, uses strong academic language, and views questions as challenging his or her authority. We can see the potential for a cultural clash here. With the owners and course designers and tutors to be mindful of these cultural differences, there is a need to develop deep empathy for the people you are designing for. HCD, human-centered design, and the use of technology or technology used are embedded with these principles for human-computer interaction. For example, an existing technological design is the assignment activity in Moodle. Some students are sent reminders and email notifications close to deadlines. The The submission area will reflect a countdown to the final submission date. However, the tutor can set up the system to accept the assignment up to a reasonable time after the due date. The system will reflect how much time the student exceeded the deadline date with prompt reminders instead of closing the submission area on students at the fixed due date. So it allows for some flexibility because of the cultural awareness of things that you come into the learning environment with. On closing, I would like to thank my colleague Stacey for engaging me in this discussion on cultural adaptivity for online course design, considerations for human-computer interaction and human-centered design. I think we are just barely scratching the surface here. There is so much more to learn, but of course we are pressed for time. So to thank you for all the suggestions. You sent me reading, you sent me to do the research, so I was happy to also do the research and to come across the Hofstede insights into cultural dimensions. So thank you for that. So wishing you all the best in your studies. Thank you for Brihannia.